Have you ever considered how a well produced podcast can transform your business strategy? Today, we have the pleasure of meeting Molly, the leader of Heartcast Media. With over 25 years of experience in marketing, Molly has successfully elevated multiple podcasts into the top 10% globally. Her impressive portfolio includes the DC Mayor's Office, NATO, the ACLU, and the Department of Health, showcasing her ability to deliver high quality, strategically branded content. Based in Washington, D.C., Molly combines authenticity with a sharp understanding of podcast dynamics, content creation, and guest booking. Her straightforward approach ensures each project is both insightful and impactful. We're excited to hear Molly share her expertise on producing successful podcasts and how they can drive business growth. Hey, Molly, thanks for joining us.
What's up? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what have you done fun today?
Well, not a lot of work, luckily. Today, I actually enjoyed my morning a little bit. So cheers to that.
That is amazing. So, what inspired you to start Heartcast Media, and how has the company evolved over the last 7 years?
For sure. So I've owned a multimedia company for the last 24, 25 years now, but I was primarily focused on creating, supporting community through art, music, and culture. That was really kind of my main jam for a really long time in Washington, D.C. And so I worked with a lot of artists. I worked with local governments. I worked with a ton of different people, but we were really focused on community engagement, creating opportunities, and working with local artists. And it was very hyper local focused. So we would do, we would go. One day we did an event at the Smithsonian, and then we packed up our gear and loaded into a warehouse and did a rave until 3 p.m. the next day or something. With the same set of equipment and the same staff. So we were really underground and focused on art, music, and culture. So 7 years ago, I hit a point where I wanted to take, in the creative world, you can be really scrappy and create amazing things. And in the business world, it's so incredibly wasteful and turns out a lot of garbage. And I wanted to bridge the gap between like creating content that was attractive and effective and affordable, because I saw too many businesses paying $20,000 for a brand video. And it's like, it's got 17 views on YouTube. And then they're like, well, video doesn't work. And you're like, well, hang on before you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's take a look at this again. And so that was really the main focus with Heartcast Media and why I formed it. But it's always something I've been passionate about, truly.
How have your experiences working with clients like NATO and the DC Mayor's Office shaped your approach to podcast?
Well, it's really interesting because, I never thought I'd be working for any of those people. I had to scrub my Facebook page when they started hiring me. I was like, oh, all those years being a derelict, they're going to come back and haunt me now. But, getting to work with world-class journalists like Terry Schultz on the NATO project, I mean, that woman is phenomenal, and getting to witness her in her craft was amazing. It also, gave me an opportunity to really, first of all, impress my friends and family. Nobody took me seriously until I produced a podcast for NATO. It's terrible. There's people on the internet who are more supportive than the people who know me, but the NATO one is what made me legit. But, just understanding the strategy and what the importance is of identifying the goalposts. So if you're the Department of Health, like, you don't really care about subscribers. You're trying to get a message out. It's public information, and you're trying to get it out to as many people. And if you're NATO, you're addressing a completely different audience. And if you have a dating podcast, then you're addressing a completely different audience and a different goal. And so it was a really good introduction into like how important strategy is, and that podcasting is like comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and different methods work for different people depending on what the goal is.
So you mentioned earlier a rave, and now we're talking about DC and NATO. How do those compare?
Well, one of them is distinctively more fun than the other. I can promise you that. At the end of the day, right, it's all the same. Like, I've always been a connector and somebody who's like gets really excited about things. And so if there's information that I want to get out, I will do everything I can to help it get out, And so for me, it's not that much different, honestly, because I get to work with people who are trying to make the world a better place, trying to make the world a healthier place. And both of those things are really focused on community and the impact that they have on the communities that they exist in. And so even though it feels like a whole other planet, it really isn't. It's very, very similar.
working with you myself, I am able to see that you do have a lot of fun in your work, and a lot of you really do enjoy your work, and you enjoy working with your clients. You've made it very amazing. It's an amazing experience for me. How would you describe your leadership style, and how has it influenced the growth of Heartcast Media?
My leadership style is like definitely chaotic. I mean, I like to think that I am a good leader, but the reality is that I'm not always. Even just this week, I did not display good leadership skills. And that's just the reality of it. What I learned from my last business, it was, it looked wildly successful from the outside in, but it was not, and it was not sustainable. And it was a giant boulder that I was pushing up a hill. And the second I stopped pushing it, it was going to roll back on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea what I was doing because I didn't go to business school. No one ever said the words leadership to me. These were just things I didn't know. And so when I closed that company, I decided that I wanted to do it better. And I read 130 some odd books on business development in about 3 years. I got an MBA through Audible, right? And I basically listened to all business development and leadership books. And I mean, there was times when I would have to pause the recording and call people and go, I am so sorry. Like, my God, man, I couldn't have gotten it any more wrong, And so this time around with Heartcast Media, I try to treat my employees as humans. And I have a lot of offshore, employees, but I don't treat them as contractors. They're treated as employees, and they get paid every Friday, and they had, time off for Christmas, and they got paid, vacation, without them, I couldn't do anything. And so I like to think that I've improved a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think leadership is like a constant journey, and it usually is like predicated by getting things very wrong.
I agree with you. I think employees, associates all around are looking for leaders that are human, that can own up to when they make a mistake, can just be in the trenches working with them. I think that's a great quality of a leader, is to be personal and human, and to represent no matter where they are, they're still contributing to the great success of your company. So, core values, most important to you in managing your teams and projects, what kind of ranks high for you?
Integrity.
Yeah.
And accountability. I really like all my clients. There's not a single client on my list that I'm like that I feel sick when I have to speak to them, or I just hate them. And I can say that from experience. We had to fire somebody last year who was like toxic
Yeah.
for the team. And it was a good lesson. You know what I mean? It was a really good lesson. If you really like your clients, then everybody is really excited to do a great job. When we made the Lego characters for this podcast for you, we're excited to share those with you because we know you're going to like them, and they're cool and they're fun. And we went above and beyond on those, and we're happy to do so. And I think those core values shine through because it's all about accountability. We want to do a good job, not just because that's what you paid us to do, but because we want to, and we want it to be really good for you, and we want it to look good. We want to exceed your expectations, and we want to see you win. And not just because you paid us to do that, because you didn't. You paid us to produce podcasts. But we want to see you win everything. And that's why, I will never hesitate to get on a call with you and talk to you about your email list or anything, even though it has nothing to do with me. I'm still more than happy to chat with you about that and give you any guidance that I have from making a bunch of mistakes doing it to help shorten that path for you. And so I think that's really at the very core of our company is we like our clients, and we should treat them like we're friends that we want to friends who have paid us, of course, but friends who we really want to succeed, and we have the skills to help them do that.
And I've absolutely felt that as one of your clients. If I feel like at any time I can reach out to someone on the team and not feel stupid about my uncertainty in a new realm of my business. So it's incredibly exciting. And you mentioned, I heard in one of your other podcasts about your previous work before you did Heartcast Media, and how you left that because you didn't feel like there was a lot of integrity. So for you to bring that to this, it speaks volumes. It really does. So
Thank you.
when facing challenges in your business, what strategies do you employ to kind of overcome those?
I never thought I'd hit a point in my life where I was quoting my dad, but here we are. But he always says you got to stay in the moving forward program. And I think that is like so much to it. Like, you're going to get things wrong. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to disappoint some people, but you just have to keep going, and you have to, be really clear. But, if you get up every day and you put that time in, things will level out, even when they feel really hopeless, or, being an entrepreneur is brutal. Like, it is not for the faint of heart, Some days you're feeling like you're the shit, and you just did something great for your clients and they love you. And then other days you mess something up and you want to crawl under your own bed, and that's just is what it is. But it's how you handle that, right? It's like what you do next that matters. And I think so much of like entrepreneurship is like, it just sucks for a really long time, and then all of a sudden it clicks and it doesn't suck anymore and it works. But you never know when that's going to happen. It could be the next day. It could be a proposal you sent out 6 months earlier that could be just the thing you need, and then it kicks off this. They say once the spout is on, it's on. And I've seen that. I mean, feast or famine is super real. First couple years of my business, I was like, this is great. Got this. Bing, bang, boom. Made a bad hire, made some changes. Couple years weren't so great. I really questioned myself, like, did I lose it? Did I have it to begin with? But then a good momentum can happen. And now next thing you know, it's like the doors are opening as I walk towards them, right? Once again. And so what changed? Nothing. I just kept going, right? And I tried to remain humble enough to know when something I've suggested wasn't working, or something I implemented wasn't working, and to back up off it as quickly as possible. It's one of the benefits of being a small business is you can be a lot more agile, and you can go, whoop, nope, bad idea. Stop that immediately. It's not this huge moving, tugboat that, needs some time to slow down. You can adjust quickly. So
I look at those as times when it's nice to be a small business entrepreneur and not the gigantic corporation where I can make changes if I see that they're needed. So how do you incorporate fun into Heartcast Media? You mentioned that you've got employees all over. Do y'all connect, or how do y'all have fun, and what impact does that have on the team's performance?
That's a little harder. I've been thinking about how to make it more fun for we're really big on the Trello boards at Heartcast. So like every client has a Trello board, and I try to, I don't know if that's fun. I think, my younger self would probably kick me in the knee for saying Trello boards are fun, but, they're not in Google Drive all day. You know what I mean? We turn some of our, we turn ourselves into cartoons, or our clients into Lego characters, even though we're hosting, we have a podcast called China Mena, and it's like talking about China and Iran and those relationships. I mean, it's a very serious podcast, but then we have a podcast where I turn people into cartoons and we ask them questions, so, I try to at least make what we do a little bit fun, but it is harder being so far apart from one another and on so many time differences. So the way that I kind of make up for that is that I give my employees a lot of space to have lives and autonomy outside of the work they do for Heartcast Media. So Matt, for example, he is a girls hockey coach. And they are going to the finals this week. Actually, I'll be covering all his sessions this week. So with all my clients, I will be the engineer, and I'm happy. I'm super stoked to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's great. Like he's been doing this for a number of years now. He really is bonded with these girls who, by the way, lost their sponsorship because the big corporation who was going to give them 10 grand to sponsor the team said they no longer, they had to rescind their sponsorship. One of the top types of firms in the entire country with $1 billion said that they have to rescind their $10,000 sponsorship because it was a direct violation of Trump's anti-DEI policies, and sponsoring a high school girls hockey team is, terrorism, apparently. So, but I digress. I have to use this platform a little bit, but but I mean, it's great. He really loves those girls. He's been with them for like 4 years, and they're all teenage girls, so they make fun of him. But he's good at what he does, and I wouldn't want him to not take that job and that extra income and that, more importantly, life-fulfilling thing that he does. That brings him a lot of joy. I don't care if he edits a client's podcast at 2 a.m. or from a bus full of high school girls, or from his. I don't care, as long as the work is done well and it's done right and it's done on time. And I think that that's a unique thing. I've spent a lot of time in and out of hospitals in my life with a bunch of spinal issues and things. And I'll never forget, I was working for a real estate company in Capitol Hill, and I was like the receptionist. It was like the most brainless job I've ever had. And I got rear-ended, and I had a whole lot of problems. And I would have to like ask to take time off, and I would have to wake up every morning and I would take like 3 a leave. Oh God, in hindsight, I was in that much pain. I would have to like, you know what I mean? Like I'd finish whatever wine was on the counter from the night before and take the leave just to sit in traffic to get to this job by 8 a.m. for what? And I just like, I hit a point when I said, I'm not going to poison my body to get to this job at some arbitrary time and then ask for permission to go to the doctor. And that's kind of informed who I am as a boss as well.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. One of the reasons why I wanted to go out and start my own business was to allow me the opportunity to work more with the individuals and not just with the corporate initiatives, and learning what their strengths, what they're good at, what they're not so good at. And it's not a get out of jail free card of not doing your job, but it's opening your eyes to there's some other areas at work or at home that if you tap into those, you're going to be much more happier. And it's like you said, why are we forcing ourselves to do things that make us miserable if we don't have to do that anymore? So compliments to you, Chief. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So it doesn't sound to me like there's any difficulties in balancing the professionalism and the fun atmosphere. Your team has always been lighthearted and yet still get the job done. Have there any tips to the trade on that one?
No, well, I mean, I think just being there for them, letting them know that you care, and apologizing when you make mistakes, because we all make mistakes as long as you own up for them, I think, in regards to bringing fun in, I was going to mention, the fun is also really apparent in how we communicate with our clients and our outreach with our clients and our marketing. The way that I represent the company is very much more like stand-up comedian than like thought leadership. You know what I mean? So I think that impacts the experience that the clients and my employees have when we're working on things together.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now I'm going to throw out a wild card question. You don't know what's coming. What's a memorable moment or story from your journey that stands out to you?
Well, honestly, yep. It was right before I closed out my last company. I was managing 4 Airbnbs and cleaning them myself. I had a 3-story building across the street from the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. I built a retail location, a live music stage, a podcast studio, and a recording studio inside the building. I was managing 160 artists, and I was breaking myself. I was pouring from a cup that had been empty for a very long, long time. And I was cleaning one of the Airbnbs, and I had my little JBL speaker clipped to my bra strap so I could hear it over the vacuum cleaner. Nobody can clean an Airbnb faster than me, let me tell you. And I was listening to Tom Bilyeu's podcast. And it was funny because at the time, a lot of people in DC thought I just had all this money, and they didn't realize, no, I'm cleaning toilets all day in order to pay for this stuff. Like, shockingly, there's not a lot of money in local music. You might be surprised by that, but there's not. And so I was cleaning the Airbnb and I was vacuuming, and I used to listen to Impact Theory, which is Tom Bilyeu's podcast, which, disclaimer, he's gone completely off the rails and I cannot recommend that podcast anymore. It's all fear mongering. But 5 years ago, 7 years ago now, the content was really good. And he would interview all these people that had overcome things and wanted to make an impact on the world. And there was just a few gems, but the biggest one that stood out, he said, you don't have to do this anymore. And I just stopped dead in my tracks, and it was like somebody had given me permission. You don't have to do this anymore. And he would also say your greatest success will come right after your greatest failure. So hurry up. You know what I mean? Quit trying to have a Bavarian pretzel truck if the people don't want your pretzels. You know what I mean? Know when to hold them and when to fold them, and just get out. And it was like somebody was giving me permission to listen to what I knew inside.
Mhm.
And that was one of the biggest aha moments of my entire life, was you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I talk to people when they're overwhelmed, I remind them, we're all adults. You don't have to
Mhm.
play the clarinet anymore.
Mhm.
If you don't want to do it, your mom's not here.
Exactly. Yep, that's right. Wow, so after that, you shut down the Airbnbs, and what was next?
Shut down that multimedia company that I ran, shut down the Airbnbs, and I formed Heartcast Media, and I Marie Kondoed and reverse Oprah'd my life. I said, what brings me joy and what doesn't. And then I always joke I reverse Oprah'd, and I said, you gotta go and you gotta go and you gotta move out, and I'm not responsible for anybody.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah.
it was amazing, and it was really a truly limiting, or limitless thing, because then I, for once, was thinking about, well, what do I really want to do? What do I like about what do I do now? And I love the strategy and the artistry and the setting up the shot and the, you know what I mean? I love all that. I love people. I love working with people. I love solving problems. I love surprising and exciting people. You know what I mean? Impressing them and like over deliver. I love all those things. I just didn't really like who I was doing it for.
Mm.
And so that was the big change. And so I basically took what we were doing and, through bike rides and nonprofits and community events and raves and events at the Smithsonian, and took that into B2B marketing.
Yeah.
And here we are,
One of the things I love most about your story, and to me, it's huge. I'm in awe. Shortly after COVID, or during COVID, you shut down your DC office and you moved to the beautiful tropical view that we get to see every time I talk to you in Costa Rica. And
Yeah.
that just says, that I hear now that you don't have to do this anymore, to the DC office space. And I'm going to pick up and I'm going to go somewhere that makes me happy and makes me feel good. And I mean, I admire that so much about you.
Well, thank you. People always say, like, you're so brave. And I'm like, I don't know if brave is the right word, but I just, I'll never forget. It was right in the pandemic, and I had a beautiful studio in a castle mansion in DuPont Circle, literally a historic castle mansion, right? Really not ideal for a studio because you couldn't do anything to the walls. You couldn't hang anything. I had to get real creative in there. And it was on the presidential route. And so it was like the airplane movie, because like the motorcade would go by and you'd be like, hold for like 27 minutes. It's like, woo, but anyway, it looked super cool, but then the pandemic happened and everything was shut down. And my friend was going to North Carolina with her boat. And I was like, whoa, where are you going? Kill her with that boat and not me in the car. You know what I mean? Like, and she said, I'm going to North Carolina. If you want to come down, my sister lives, I'm going to relocate for a few months, see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so I convinced this lady on Airbnb to rent me a place, because I had been an Airbnb host and super host for 7 years. I was like, we could do it offline, man. I got to get out of this city, And I rented an Airbnb down in North Carolina at Curry Beach, just outside of Wilmington. And I was barefoot, in the sand for the first time in a long time, because I've been living in DC for 20 years. And I was walking with my dog down the beach, talking to my dog like any normal person would do. And I was like, Lily, how amazing is this? Look at us. We're on the beach. And I was like, what if our life was like this? And I literally stopped dead in my tracks. And I looked at her and I said, why can't our life be like this? It's North Carolina, for crying out loud. The bar's not that high. You know what I'm saying? It's not, I'm not in Dubai. You know what I mean? I can definitely, and it just reminded me that while I can thrive in chaos and I can thrive in a city, I'm actually meant for green grass and sandy beaches and being barefoot and I'm a Tom girl, and I've always been a Tom girl, and I'm always going to be a little dirty and climbing trees and hands in the dirt. And that's who I am. And it's not that I forgot. It's just that society forced me to adapt in a different way. But putting my feet in the sand and looking at that open horizon and saying that to my dog. And it was another one of those, not only you don't have to do this anymore, but you can do anything you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
It might not be easy. Maybe you have kids. It won't be as simple as me just old spinster packing up my little 8-pound dog and moving to the beach, but it's still not impossible. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, the reminder, because sometimes we just get to be prisoners of our own lives. And it's like, well, hold on, And
we sometimes have these preconceived notions of what you're supposed to do. And I think COVID forced a lot of us to say, I don't want to live like that anymore. Like, I don't have to go into the office if I can do the same work remote and be almost more productive without, like you mentioned earlier, the traffic and the drive and just I don't have to show up at 8 if I can get the work done throughout the day, you know. Yeah, you
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us today. I have been impressed with your business since I've been working with you, and your team has been very accommodating no matter what seems to be going on in our world. And to see how you've come to where you are today, and to see how you take care of your professionals that work with you, both your clients and your team, and how you've incorporated just being human and trying to have fun with it at the same time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I love working with you. I really do. You're such a gem, and you're so authentic and nice and kind. And then you do this super cool thing with this Lego Serious Play facilitating. And I mean, I was joking with you that I didn't never went to Disney World and never had like Legos or Barbies because I was the youngest of four and they barely even knew I was there. But I've always loved Legos, and you have definitely inspired me. I was thinking next time I'm back, I'm gonna like buy a Lego set to bring back with me here and play with it.
I'll be
Um,
sending you one. I just need to get your address. That's the
well, the
tricky
thing is,
part.
I don't have an address. It's like I'm like 200 meters north of the sun. I don't even know. Like it's Costa Rica. It's a whole thing. But working with you is really great, and I love I think what you do is really cool. And I think that you have such a unique situation with your blended family, and you bring so much to the table and so much compassion and authenticity and this unique offering. So it's really a pleasure to work with you and get to know you over the last couple months. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. And I know I'll be talking to you frequently. And if anybody needs a really amazing podcast producer, team, content creation, all the fun things, reach out to Molly, Heartcast Media. They really are top-notch professionals. They make it fun. They make it enjoyable. They are just stellar to work with. And I didn't have to
Thank you.
pay $10 million. So, well, for now, maybe in the future, you'll up the rates. But for right now,
That's
it's pretty
right.
hard. Yeah.
Unlimited downloads. Let's go.
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Molly. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.